And let me introduce, first of all, Christophe, who's the data manager at the Faculty of Medicine's School of Public Health at Imperial College London, and Kanika Dharmayat, who is a member of the FH Europe Foundation Policy Advisory Committee and is also at the School of Public Health in Imperial College in the Centre for Cardiovascular Disease Prevention. Both are involved in the EAS FH study collaboration, the global FH registry. So a warm welcome to both of you, and Kanika is obviously joining us online. Let's kick off with you, Christophe. Health data is, if you like, an important currency, and registries are a little bit like banks. Can you unpack to us all, in really simple terms, how individual data sets collectively can really contribute towards bigger pictures, help to demonstrate key trends, help to support decision-making, help to support research? That would be really fantastic. Please, the floor is yours.
I'll try my best. Thanks. So I'm actually a software engineer in Imperial College, so my background is a bit different. And I'm also a part-time PhD student doing my PhD on FH. So I'm very interested by this condition. And thank you very much to FH Europe Foundation for inviting me today and represent the FH study collaboration. So first I will try to explain how registry work in simple terms. And then I will describe what is the FH study collaboration and move on to findmylipidclinic.com. So imagine a patient going to their clinic in normal circumstances. They would provide their data so that they can receive clinical care. But this data cannot be used by researcher because they did not provide informed consent. So it is very important for patients to provide informed consent so that their data can be passed through to researcher, or even the clinician himself could use that data to conduct research. With informed consent, the researcher can then answer a question, scientific question, that can help inform policies. The problem here is that if you have few patients within one clinic, the finding might be due to chance or anecdotal and not representative of the whole patient population, especially in the context of rare disease, where there's only 1 or 2 patients in the clinic. So 1 or 2 patients will not be enough to provide clear conclusion for policy and guidelines. While if many patients across different clinic and center join and provide informed consent, then this data can be put together into registries, and the findings that are found in these registries can then inform policies and guidelines and will be less likely due to chance. So I like to see registry as patient, clinician, and researcher communities coming together for change. And I will now describe the FHSC and what it is. For me, it is 4 things. The first being a network of collaborators, and you can see the extent of the FHSC on the map here. So all the regions of the world are in gray shade here. We have 75 countries at present, and all these countries and the FHSC itself is coordinated at Imperial College London, where I work. This is only possible because we receive data from patients, so we thank patients for providing their data, and we receive 70,000 patient information. These come from 600 collaborators, so labs, clinics, and put together by 87 national leads who are senior clinicians or scientists around the world. Also, we need to acknowledge the funders, without whom it is not possible to conduct research and have the funds to answer all these different questions that I will explain now. So, before being able to answer questions, we need to put in place a machine, data sharing machine, to be able to share data between all these sites and persons. And these require a lot of documents, a truckload of documents. And these documents are data sharing agreement, ethical compliance form, and privacy notices, which are to protect the patient ultimately, and also protect the institution so that they are legally protected in case of issue. One of these issues could be due to IT infrastructure, so a lot of work is required in order to have strong infrastructure to receive all this patient data. And at Imperial, at the moment, there are 3 computers that are always on and that are subject to security tests to make sure that the patient data is always secure and harmonized to the highest standard. All this is possible because we have a multidisciplinary team, and you can see my colleague here with Professor Ray, who is leading this initiative. And it is also a very international team, so it is also, again, together for change. It's across different disciplines and different countries and regions. That's the way it is possible. So once we have all this data in the registries, we can finally answer some questions, scientific questions. But what question to ask? This is actually submitted to a panel of experts who are our executive committee, and they look together with us at the coordinating center with binocular in the whole picture and try to find something that could be interesting in a scientific aspect. After long debates of what could be a potentially interesting scientific question, then they move on and they take a magnifier this time to scrutinize this specific question in much detail, also in a very collaborative manner. Then they are finally ready to write a report, and you have writing groups made of experts that then write the reports that are ready for dissemination. And dissemination happens with our collaborator, for example, today FH Europe, but also in other scientific conferences or webinars. So again, a collaboration between different parties. My colleague Kanika will explain the past analysis of the FHSC, so the work that has already been conducted, and I will now show the different analyses that are ongoing. So the biggest one at the moment is the genetic analysis of FH variant. So we receive a lot of data from around the world about the different variants found in different regions, and we will look into this in much detail, trying to find out what are the differences between regions of the world, and whether certain tests could be specific for certain areas to screen and decrease the number of mutations that need to be searched for in each region. We are also interested into the link between obesity and diabetes and FH, so to see what modifiable risk factor can be considered when treating FH. Then we are interested in Lp(a) and FH, and in a recent analysis we found that Lp(a) was elevated in 30% of the FH patient and linked to higher CAD, a coronary artery disease, in this patient. FHSC is also a collaborator of FH Europe, and we are very thankful for this collaboration. So we have a bi-monthly meeting with FH Europe and reciprocal representation, such as today. And also we take part in each other's newsletter to disseminate findings. So this collaboration is a symbiotic relationship because we have the same goal but different needs. We have data, but we don't know how to disseminate it. And FH Europe does not have data, but can disseminate it very well. Which leads me to my final point, findmylipidclinic.com, which is the online directory of lipid clinic and patient support group. So I made a little demonstration, hopefully it will run, looking for a specialist in Amsterdam. So I typed Amsterdam on the tool, and when I clicked on search, I found 2 specialists, Professor Erik Stroos and Professor Albert Wigman, who are here in the room. So you can also see the detail of the clinic displayed there and what are the services provided. I also looked for patients support group, and you can see here in the Netherlands this Achterraad that is more south than Amsterdam. So this tool can be much improved, and we want to improve the user-friendliness of the tool, make it more appealing, and also expand the reach and the number of specialists and support groups in the directory. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions or you wish to collaborate. This is my email address, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Christophe, and thank you for making that such a very clear presentation, running us through exactly how data registries actually function and what are the prerequisites. That was fantastic. Kanika, over to you now. We learned a great deal. Sorry, hang on a second, Kanika. We learned a great deal about your work last year, and what we'd love you to do is recap where you are right now, and moreover, as the question highlighted, its impact from an advocacy perspective, how it's making a difference. I think we'd all love to hear that. Over to you.
Thank you again, Nicola and Magda, for this kind invitation, and from FH Europe. And hello, everyone. Apologies for not being there in person, but I am pleased to expand on the work mentioned by Christophe. And as mentioned, we'll present some of the main findings that have been published and will be published shortly in terms of the children data set. So the overall analysis that have been undertaken within the FHSC registry. I want to begin again by reminding that FH is highly prevalent, and the latest estimates suggest that more than 25 million people have FH worldwide. But overall, less than 10% have been identified to date, which means that there are more than 20 million people with FH that are in the world that are yet to be identified, of which more than 6 million are children and adolescents. So to contribute to improving identification of FH, the data in the FHSC registry was analyzed from the adult data set and the children cohort as well, which I will summarize. So our first set of findings and publication was based on the adult data set. And what we saw was that from our analysis on the adults, that a major finding was the diagnosis of FH occurs at 44 years of age. Now, if we consider the different age categories in this bar graph, you see highlighted in the red box that notably of the adults in the registry, only 2% were diagnosed in their childhood and adolescence. So scientific evidence and policy guidelines state the importance and benefit of early identification. But if we are diagnosing FH in adulthood, then we have 40 years of missed opportunity to have initiated treatment in these individuals early in life and reduce their risk of premature atherosclerotic cardiovascular events. In fact, we found that in the registry, 1 in 6 adults had established cardiovascular disease when they were diagnosed with FH. So this means that most likely these adults were tested for FH following this premature cardiovascular event. So we cannot wait for these events to occur prematurely to then diagnose FH. However, we can now change the paradigm and begin to find FH in childhood so that we can initiate treatment and effectively prevent the premature cardiovascular events that would occur in these children that are there right now that are yet to be diagnosed. So we also observed another important finding whereby the opportunity for screening for FH early in life has other benefits, as many cardiovascular risk factors for cardiovascular disease are linked. So we see on this slide the prevalence of hypertension and the prevalence of diabetes grouped by different age categories. And again, highlighted in the red box, what we see is a lower prevalence of hypertension and diabetes in the youngest age categories. And we see a clear trend in this. So this tells us that screening for FH at younger ages, in fact, younger than the age category shown here, has enormous benefits and opportunities, not only for FH, but also other highly prevalent cardiovascular risk factors that are a significant burden on individuals and to health systems. So far, we have seen the benefits of finding FH early in life, and I now want to illustrate further through this example of a family pedigree on the benefit of finding FH in children first. And we know that there is a 50% chance of the FH mutation being passed on. And we can see that FH presents in every generation, which, and in this family pedigree, the color red represents FH. In this family pedigree, this 46-year-old had a premature cardiovascular event, so a heart attack or MI, which led to testing of their children and their parent and through cascade screening. Importantly, these children now have a young parent with a major cardiovascular event. But if we actively screen for FH in childhood between the ages of 2 to 9 years, for example, then we can effectively find this 3-year-old and this 5-year-old that are exhibiting very high LDL-C levels, and then initiate reverse cascade screening, whereby we are now finding their parent before a premature cardiovascular event occurs. So if we want to identify FH in childhood, then we need to see what factors need to be considered to enable this process. So following on the analysis on the adult data set, we looked into the children and adolescents, so those that are considered less than 18 years of age within the registry. And we wanted to understand the characteristics of these children and adolescents in our registry so that we can begin to provide contemporary approaches to help find FH early in life. So we had data from 48 countries, and a total of 11,848 children and adolescents were diagnosed with heterozygous FH within our data set, within our registry. And what I would like to say is that the findings that I will present now have been accepted in the Lancet, and we are awaiting a publication. So in terms of how children and adolescents present in the registry, we see that there is an equal representation of girls and roughly the age of diagnosis at 9 years of age. But highlighted in the red box, we can see that the presence of coronary artery disease, or CAD, is low, showcasing the importance of finding FH early in life. Because if we find FH early in life, in childhood, then these individuals are disease-free. Compared to in adulthood, when we are finding FH, we saw earlier that 1 in 6 adults had cardiovascular disease at the time of when they were found to have FH. So again, finding FH in childhood means that they are disease-free, and it can remain like this because we would be able to initiate treatment early in life and therefore enable a life course that matches those of the general population. Importantly, we see that the presence of physical signs, so corneal arcus and xanthoma, which are hallmark signs to help screening and diagnose of FH, are actually very low in presentation in prevalence in children and adolescents in our registry. So this means that we cannot rely on the presence of these signs to screen children for FH. And if we do, then we are likely to miss those that have FH but do not exhibit or present with these signs. In fact, highlighted in this table, we see that when we do rely on physical signs, so in this instance grouped by non-high income and high income countries, we see that their children are much older, the prevalence of physical signs are much higher, and also they have a higher prevalence of coronary artery disease, or CAD. So this finding is likely due to the absence of genetic tests and are reliant on, and means that these instances, in the absence of availability or accessibility of genetic tests, then health systems are reliant on the presence of these signs to guide diagnosis. So the current recommendations of considering physical signs to screen and diagnose FH are not suitable in childhood based on the findings in our registry. So we need to see how to identify FH in childhood that doesn't rely on physical signs, and especially when genetic testing is unavailable, especially in the first instance. So we next compared LDL-C levels between FH and non-FH children. And we can see here there is a clear difference in LDL-C levels between boys and girls that have FH and don't have FH. So this tells us that if we measure LDL-C levels in childhood, then this alone can provide a good measure to understand if a child has FH and potentially help to risk stratify them for further testing and diagnosing. And this figure, or this finding, is perhaps the most significant from the analysis on the children cohort, as this can be used by clinicians and health systems as a guide to compare the measured LDL-C levels of their pediatric cases against these percentile curves, rather than relying on one specific cutoff, for example, at the moment that is based on different clinical diagnostic criteria. So as policy is driving towards active screening for FH in childhood, using these curves and not rely on other factors such as physical signs can lead to better identification rates in childhood. So I'm sure this has been mentioned today, but apologies. But yes, the European Commission has selected screening for FH as one of the best practices to help prevent NCD prevention, non-communicable diseases, of which cardiovascular disease is a major contributor to NCD morbidity and mortality. And within this, the European Commission recommend different types of screening strategies, but the key message is that doing nothing is not an option, which I think we're all very much aligned in this FH Europe Foundation meeting, all the stakeholders. And so I hope that through our analysis from both the adults and specifically the children, we are providing pragmatic solutions for health systems, such as the percentile curves, that can be utilized as an initial screening tool to help find FH in childhood. I want to end by saying that there are more than 6.4 million children with FH right now, and if we maintain the current rate of less than 10% of identification, then the prevalence and the gap between prevalence and detection will continue to diverge and not get smaller. So and these children will remain unidentified if we don't, at the very least, measure LDL-C levels. And we saw that we can screen for FH in childhood by LDL-C levels and ideally genetic testing as well, to potentially correctly identify FH in childhood and initiate treatment in this population group to prevent manifestation of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. I'd like to thank for all the collaborators, the EAS FHSC investigators, and importantly, all the individuals with FH that have contributed to the FHSC network and registry for us to be able to undertake this analysis. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Kanika. Again, a really clear presentation that I think has underlined the importance of evidence, the importance of your work. I know you're in very close collaboration as part of our Policy Advisory Committee, and we look forward to getting more from you in the webinars that will come up in the next few months.